Okay, so today we are here to discuss about privileged access security, right? What is this privileged access security? Why do we need to secure the privileged accounts, right? What is the requirement of that? What challenges do we face in with our privileged accounts, right? And how can we solve all of those challenges here, right? So this is what we will be discussing for today's session. But before going there, let me tell about us. Okay, let me tell you about this infosec train. Okay, so we started back our journey in 2016, right? By a group of passionate individuals with over than 15 years of experience, right? And till date, along with this privileged access management security course, we offer about 250 other courses as well. Okay, so this is about our journey here. Okay, these are some trusted clients that we have here. Okay, quickly talk about the agenda that we are going to cover in this session. Okay, the first thing that we will be talking here is we'll be discussing about the introduction of privileged accesses. What is privileged access, right? Before discussing about the privileged access security, let's understand that what are these privileged accesses. Okay, so privileged access is any account, right? Any account that can be used to log into the system and perform some server level changes there, right? Any account which is having some additional capabilities, some additional permissions in the system. Okay, a normal read-only user does not have these much of capabilities. For example, you might have noticed this that when you join any organization uh, and you want to install a software on your company's laptop, okay, you are not allowed to do that, right? And in that case, what do? You raise a request to the company's support team. Okay, they are going to remotely log into your system and they are going to download that software for you, right? This is the process that you follow there. So, how come they are able to download that software in your laptop but you are not? This is because they are using an account which is having higher permissions than yours. Okay, so any account which is having some higher ability, some higher permission is something that you call as privileged access accounts. Okay. Now, since these accounts have some higher permissions in the system, it becomes a target here, right? Uh, the attackers in the architecture might try to get access to these accounts, right? And they can gain access to these accounts. They can log into the servers using these accounts, and they can get away with any information with these accounts, right? That's why the security of these accounts becomes very important here. Okay. Now, yes, before discussing about the security mode, there are few types of privileged accounts here. Okay. So let's talk about them as well. Okay. Let's talk once about the types here. Okay. The first type of privileged account, as you see here, is interactive accounts. Okay. Or human accounts. Okay, so interactive accounts which you use to log into the system. Okay, account which you use to perform some work. Okay, the accounts which are used by humans, used by the users, right? Uh, let's say if you are logging into your laptop, how do you log into your laptop? You use a username and password to log in there, right? Uh, how do you log into your Gmail? You use a username and password to log in there, right? So you are using an account to log into the system. So any account with which you are interacting is something that you call as interactive accounts. Okay. And we have some examples for this. Okay. The first example, if you see here, is super user account. Okay. Super user is any account which is the most powerful, right? The most privileged account in the system. Okay. Let's say, for example, for Unix system type, you have this root account, okay, which is used by humans. Okay, and this is the most powerful account in this Unix system. Okay, so one example for interactive privileged accounts, right? Um, Second example is Windows, right? For Windows, we have local administrators. You might have worked with Windows, okay? You might know this local administrators there, right? So local administrators is the most privileged accounts, most powerful account within Windows system type. Okay, and since we are using this account, this is an interactive privileged account here. Okay, next one is for database. You have sysadmins. Okay, database system type have this sysadmin accounts, which is the most powerful account, and you are interacting with it. Okay, you are using the username, you are using the password, you are typing it yourself, right? Uh, Next one is Active Directory domain admin accounts. Okay, so Active Directory is basically a repository, right? So whenever you are working in an organization, okay, you will have some users with you. Will have some servers with you. Okay, all of these user accounts, all of your privileged accounts, all of your servers, you are going to store there somewhere in some repository, right? In some directory. So Active Directory is basically the repository where you store all of your information. Okay. And sometimes what happens that to manage this Active Directory, right? Uh, they create this domain admin account, right? Domain admin account is basically an account which is having some permission, some administrator rights over the Active Directory to manage your Active Directory, to manage your servers, to manage your user accounts, right? So this Active Directory domain admin accounts, another example for your interactive privileged accounts. All right. So yeah, we had few examples for this interactive accounts. For Unix system type, you have root. For Windows system type, you have local administrators. Okay, and for database, you have sysadmins. Right. All of these are example for interactive accounts. You are using these accounts. You are typing in the username. You are typing in the password. Okay, and you are interacting with these accounts. Right. The next type is non-human accounts or non-interactive accounts, right? Now, as the name suggests here, non-interactive, no interaction with humans, right? So these accounts are basically being mapped in some applications, right? Being mapped in some scripts here. Okay. Uh, we have some examples for this non-interactive accounts. Okay. Let's take this hard coded credential. Okay, let's understand this one first. Okay, let's say we have a PowerShell script, okay, that has a functionality on it. Okay, and we need to push this functionality to hundred of servers in one single go. Okay, one way to do this is we can manually log into the servers and we can push the functionality one by one, right? But if we go with this process, this is going to take some time here, right? This is going to take a lot of efforts, right? This is going to be a very time to taking task for you. Okay. So instead of doing this manually, okay, what organizations do these days is organization is going to write the username and password of all of those servers within the script itself. Okay, and after defining that, the script is going to read this username and password. Okay, it automatically logs into the target system using the credentials that is already defined on it. Okay, and it is going to perform the functionality automatically, right? So what are we doing here? We are defining the credentials within the script. Okay, we are asking the script to read this username and password. It is going to automatically log into the system, and it is going to automatically push the functionality to the server, right? So without any manual intervention, without any human interaction here, right? As I said, these are non-interactive accounts. Without any human interactions, your task is going on, your task is being performed in the backend by this hard coded credentials, by the script. Okay, so there is no human interaction, and this is the first type for this non-interactive accounts. Okay, next thing is the service accounts. Okay, so if you know what services are, okay, services are basically created within the servers to perform certain automatic tasks. Okay, let me just show this to you. Okay, just give me 1 minute. If you go to services on your, so the second non-interactive account for us is services. So now, services are basically what happens is that whenever you are installing an application, whenever you are installing a software in your server, okay, that software or that application needs to perform certain tasks in the backend, right? And for that software, all of those tasks needs to be running like 24 by 7. Okay, those softwares, those applications cannot depend on any individual, cannot depend on any user to perform those tasks for it. Okay, that's why whenever you install that, okay, it automatically is going to create a service for itself. And services are basically for the software, for the application to perform certain tasks in the backend, right? Now, since these services are running in the backend, are responsible to perform certain tasks in the backend for the softwares, there is no human interaction. Okay, that's why these are the example for non-interactive accounts here. Okay, if you see here, I have a lot of services here. Okay, and all of these are responsible to perform certain tasks for my laptop, for my system in the backend, right? So we had two examples for non-interactive accounts, service accounts and hard-coded credentials. Okay, service accounts are created for the softwares to perform the task in the backend. Hard-coded credentials is where you define the credentials in some script, right? And for both of these things, there is no human interaction. Okay, this is where you can define the credentials, right? You will be defining the credential of the server here, okay, for this service. Okay, this is automatically going to log into that server and going to perform that functionality there. Okay, all right, moving back to the topic here. For this security thing, for this privileged access management security, the priority is going to be these interactive accounts. Why? Because the credentials here, right? The credentials for these interactive accounts are exposed, right? Since these are human accounts, since these are used by the humans, right? That's why the passwords are exposed to every single user. Okay, so whenever you are working with this privileged access security, the priority will be these interactive account ones. Okay, these non-interactive accounts are also important, but the focus is going to be on this interactive accounts. Right, moving forward from here, let's now discuss the risks, right? The risks that are associated with privileged accounts. Okay. Uh, why do we need to secure privileged access security solution, right? Why do we need the security solution here? Okay. So for that, we have some risks here, right? We have some risk with our privileged accounts. Okay. And that's why the company these days are looking for the security solutions. Okay. The first risks that you can see here is privileged accounts are the most important accounts in the enterprise. Okay. Uh, let's understand this with an example here. Okay. Talking about the Active Directory domain admin accounts. Okay. This Active Directory domain admin account is a, a domain account that is created on your repository, that is created on your directory here. Okay. The directory which contains all of your user account information, all of your server information, right? All of these information are there stored within your repository, within your Active Directory. Okay. And this domain admin account can be used to access all of those resources, right? Now, let's say you are working in an organization, and within that organization, you have thousands of server. Okay. And all of those thousands of servers are joined to your Active Directory. Okay. They are joined to your Active Directory network. Okay. Now you have this Active Directory domain admin account, which will be used to access your Active Directory. Okay. And not only access, but this account will have administrator rights over all of your servers, over all of your user accounts. Okay. So this one set of username and password of your domain admin account can be used to access like all of your thousands of servers. Okay. And they can do any changes on all these servers, right? They can perform any server level changes. They can even decommission the server, right? So one set of username and password can be used to perform all of these changes on your directory, right? They can even decommission your servers. They can even delete the user accounts, right? So this particular account, this domain admin account, is going to have that much of capability in the system. Okay. And it is not like that you are going to have only one domain admin account or only two admin accounts, right? There will be multiple accounts, there will be multiple domain accounts. Okay. And a lot of users are going to have the access to them. Okay. And if any one of your privileged accounts get compromised here, your entire system, your entire architecture will be at risk here. Okay. All of your thousands of server, all of your user accounts, all of your privileged accounts will be at risk with this. Okay. So this is how sensitive your accounts are. This is how important your privileged accounts are here. Okay. And that is why, if you look at the first point, it is acting as the key to the kingdom, right? Your privileged account acts as the key to the entire kingdom. All right, moving to our next risk that we have here. Okay. The next risk says that your accounts are not centralized. Okay. Your privileged accounts needs to have a centralized repository. Why? Because if you do not have a centralized repository, the auditing can be difficult, right? The auditing will be difficult for the auditors, right? Now, for this, let's take an example. Let's say we have our accounts, right? We have privileged accounts, and our accounts are not centralized. Okay. Okay. Now, does everyone know what audit is here? Okay. Everyone knows that. Auditing, let me just tell you this. Auditing is basically the process where auditors, right? Auditors are individuals in your organization that tracks the activities of the users, tracks the activities of the privileged accounts. So this is what you call as audit. And whatever activities is being performed inside your architecture using privileged account, that has to be tracked, right? That has to be tracked by the auditors so that they can know that what activities are being performed, what user is doing what inside the organization, right? Okay, so your organization defines some policies and auditors make sure that whether the users are following all of those policies or not. Okay, and for those auditors, okay, for the auditors to audit the activities, the accounts should be stored in a centralized repository. Okay, so what happens? Let's understand this with an example. Let's say you are working in an organization, okay, and you want to install an application in the organization. Okay, now for that you will need one server. Okay, now what you are going to do is you will be raising a request to the infrastructure team. Okay, infrastructure team is going to review your request, okay, and they are going to create a server for you. Okay, as soon as they create a server, they also create one administrator account on that server that will be used by the infrastructure team uh, for future maintenance task. Right, they create the server and they also created one administrator account on the server. Okay, now the account is created, they are going to hand it to you. Okay, you got the server, you are going to install your application on it. Okay, and now when you install your application, you are also going to create one administrator account within that application. Okay, so now you have two administrator accounts. One is created by the server team, okay, to manage the server. Okay, and one is created by you to manage the application. Two administrator accounts being managed at two places by two teams, right? And let's say if this is the process you are following with all of your servers, with whatever servers you have, right? In that case, there will be multiple administrator accounts within one server being managed at different teams, different places. Okay, one by the application team, one by the server team, one by the database team, right? And let's say if there is some auditor in your organization, okay, and he has to do some auditing. Okay, he wants to track the activities of the users. Okay, in that case, he will have to go to the server team to get the details of the server administrator account. Okay, and after that he will have to go to the application team to get the application administrator account details, right? And there can be a very high chance that that auditor might miss on some important details, right? The auditors will have to go to different places to track the activities to get the details. First to the application team to track the administrator account created by the application team, and second to the server team to get the details of the administrator account created by the server team, right? And if the auditors follow this process, they might miss on some details, right? They might not be able to track the activities properly, right? That is why it is said that to avoid the risks here, to make sure that no user is unfollowing the policies, okay, the auditors needs to have a centralized repository. Your privileged accounts needs to have a centralized repository, right? So that all of your accounts can be stored on one single storage system, one single repository. The auditors can go to that place. Okay, they can get the details of all of the privileged account, all of the administrator accounts from one single place, and they can do the auditing, right? Okay, and for this you can have like different PAM solutions with you. Okay, you can implement the privileged access management solution. Okay, any security solution that you have in the market, right? You can go with that, you can implement that. Okay, and it is going to give you a centralized repository. It is going to give you a database on which you can store all of your accounts, you can onboard all of your accounts, and it is going to provide a centralized repository for your accounts. Okay, so that the auditors can keep track of every single activity of the users, right? Auditors job will be easier in this way. Okay, so whenever you have any PAM solution for this, let's say to avoid this risk, you implemented the security solution. After that, what happens here that all of your accounts will be stored on one repository, and now whatever user uses your privileged account, whatever user initiates connection through this security solution, okay, that tool is going to generate audit logs for the user's activities. Okay, tool is going to record everything. Okay, everything will be recorded, the sessions, activities will be tracked, right? So there will be proper logs saying that this user used this privileged account to log into this system at this time. Okay, after logging in here he did this activities, right? So everything will be tracked, everything will be recorded, right? And this is how you can avoid the risks with this. Okay, moving forward from here, the next and the last risk that we have here, access control and accountability. Okay, so access control and accountability. Okay, so when you are using a sensitive credential, when you are using a privileged account to log into some server, okay, you should be accountable for your actions. Okay, so when you do not have any security solution, okay, let's say I do not have any security solution and I am working in an organization, and I want to establish the connection to a target system. Okay, in that case, how am I going to do that? Right, I will initiate a connection client. Right, let's say if I want to connect to some Windows server, then I'm going to initiate this remote desktop connection client. I will be initiating this. I will be defining the IP of the server where I want to connect. Okay, I'll be defining the credentials using which I will be connecting to that server, right? And I will be getting myself connected using this remote desktop connection client to the target, right? If you know what is this remote desktop connection client is, okay, this is basically a client that allows you to connect to a server remotely. So yeah, this remote desktop connection client is a client that allows to connect to some target remotely from your system. Okay, and whenever I am working in an organization and I want to connect to some server remotely, I will be using this here. Okay, now let's say I have initiated the connection using this. I have the username, I have the IP, I have the password. Okay, I defined all of these parameters and I got myself connected to some target. Okay, but let's say after getting connected, I chose to do something unauthorized on the server. Okay, I shared some file from that server to someone who is not authorized to access them. Okay, or let's say I deleted some files from that server. Okay, let's say I did anything which I should not do on that server, right, which I am not authorized to do on that server. Okay, but once I do all of these things, there is no track of this. Okay, there is no track that I have done this. No one is going to know that Kritika has done all of these activities. Kritika has done all of these unauthorized tasks, right? Because every single activity that gets generated on the server, okay, that will say that this username, this privileged account that I used to log in there, has done all of these activities. Okay, no one is going to know that which user has actually used this account to log in there and do all of these activities there, right? So unless you track my IP, there is no other way to get this. There is no other way to know this, that which user has done all of these activities, right? There is no accountability for the users here. Okay, and this is something that is not a good practice. This is something that should be avoided here. Okay, and for this we have security tools. Okay, we can implement security tools. So what happens here, that whenever you implement any security tool, okay, you are going to secure your privileged account into it. Okay, you have some abilities there. Okay, you have some abilities where you can define the policies, and using that, the passwords for all of your accounts will be rotated. Okay, let me just draw one diagram for you so that the things gets more clear to you. Okay, let's say this is the security solution. Okay, so this is the PAM solution here. Now what you can do is, let's say if you have one privileged account, this is a privileged account, we are going to secure it. We are going to secure it inside this. Okay, and what we can do is, we have the ability to define some policies. Okay, we can define policies like password rotation, right? We can ask this solution, we can ask this security solution to rotate the passwords of this account, and this is going to change the password for this. Okay, now whatever users you have, since this security solution has changed the password for this account, whatever users you have, they are not having the access to the old password, to the new password here, right? So they'll be using this account. Just give me 1 minute here. Yeah, right. So we have onboarded this account, we have changed the password of this account, so no user is having access to new password. Okay, now whatever users wants to use this account, they'll be asked to log into this security solution. Okay, once they log in here, this solution, this security tool is going to create an entry for them. Okay, uh, it is going to create an entry saying that this user has logged in here. After logging in, this user used this privileged account. Okay, and after using this privileged account, this user logged into this target server. Okay, and once this user logged in here, these are the activities that this user performed on that server, right? There will be proper logs, there will be a proper session recording for the activities here, right? So we onboarded the account, we changed the password for the account so that no user can have the new password, and any user that wants to use these accounts, they will have to establish the connection through the security solution only. Okay, so this is what we can do to control the accesses. This is what we can do to ensure accountability of the users. We have some expectations from any security tool, right? Whether it is CyberArk or any other security solution you have in the market, right? You can have some requirements from that. You can have some expectations from that. So let's quickly discuss about them as well. Okay, whenever you are implementing this, you get some features from it, right? Okay, so we discussed about the risk, right? We discussed all of these risks that we have for our privileged accounts. Now, let's quickly talk about the expected solution, that how can we solve those risks, right? What can be the solutions for that? How can we prevent all of these risks? Okay, so the first thing here is managing the PAM accounts. Okay, how can we manage the PAM accounts here? Right, first thing is we can implement password rotation for enhanced security. Okay, so what happens here, that for your accounts, okay, it is not advised that you keep the password static for your privileged accounts. Why? Because if you do this, if you are keeping the password same for like 6 months, 8 months, okay, there can be a time when your passwords can get exposed, right? And if it gets exposed, you are going to put your system at risk, right? So just to avoid this, it is advised that you keep the passwords rotating for all of your privileged accounts, for the security of your privileged accounts. Okay, now with this security solution, with CyberArk security solution, okay, you are able to define the password rotation frequency. Okay, you have the ability, you have some policies on CyberArk where you can define the rotation frequency. Let's say if you defined it as 30 days, you defined it as 60 days, okay, whatever you have defined there, it is going to read your policy and it is going to rotate the password accordingly. Okay, now here comes a question, that rotating the passwords is something that can be done by the administrators as well, right? Why do you need a separate security solution for that? Why do you need to invest so much for just for rotating the passwords, right? This can be the question here. So when you have a very large architecture, let's say when you have thousands of privileged accounts and you are securing all of your privileged accounts, okay, you want to change the passwords for all of those privileged accounts. Okay, if you assign this to some administrators, some users, if you ask them to do this manually, okay, first thing is this is going to take a lot of time, this is going to take a lot of efforts, right? Going to be a manual work for them. Okay, that's why instead of doing this manually, you can have the security solution with you. You can define the policy. um, Along with the policy, you can also define the complexity of the passwords, right? That whenever the password changes for the next time, what will be the length of the password? Does it contain any digits, any special characters, any numbers, right? Any upper cases? All of these things can be defined. The security tool is going to read that and going to define the password accordingly, right? So this is the first thing that you get whenever you implement any security solution. Okay, next thing is access control for PAM accounts. Okay, so what happens that for your CyberArk, okay, for your privileged accounts basically, okay, inside CyberArk or any other security solution, you have the rights, you have the permission to grant accesses according to their roles, right? You have the permission to grant accesses according to the roles. Okay, if let's say if you have some user, some normal user, they will be having the access to only to the privileged accounts, they'll be having limited access to the architecture. Okay, but let's say if you have some administrator inside your organization, in that case they'll be having some extra privileges, right? They'll be having access to add new accounts, delete new accounts, reset the passwords of the existing accounts. Okay, some more permissions like defining the policies, doing some integrations from there, right? So we have the ability to define permissions for different types of users. Okay, and using this by controlling the accesses, we will be able to prevent the risk of exposing the data, right? So we will be able to grant rule based accesses here. This is the second thing. Third thing that you can expect here is audit trails. Okay, so whenever you implement any security solution, it is going to create audit logs for the user's activities, right? There will be proper logs saying that this user logged in here, this user after logging in used this account. Okay, after using this account, this user logged into this target system, and on this target system this user did all of these activities with the timings, right? So there will be proper audit logs so that the auditors can keep a track on the user's activities. Okay, along with the logs there will be session recordings as well, right? So the sessions will be recorded. Okay, there will be a proper video recording, a proper screen recording of everything that the user is doing on the target server. Okay, so every user will be accountable for their actions, every user's activity will be tracked, every user's accesses will be controlled here, just to ensure extra layer of security in the login process. Okay, for the users you can enable this multi-factor authentications where you ask the users to after defining their credentials you can ask the users to enter an OTP, right? And only when they provide the correct OTP they will be allowed to log in there, right? There are multiple MFA tools that you can integrate here. Okay, you can use it with CyberArk. Okay, okay, RSA, Okta, all of these tools are supported by CyberArk. Okay, you can authenticate it and you can just add another layer of security for your accounts. Okay, next thing that you get from CyberArk is session management. Okay, session management includes two things. Okay, monitoring the sessions activity, right? Everything will be monitored, every for every single activity there will be logs, there will be recordings, right? And along with that you have this isolation. Okay, so what happens that when you do not have any security solution, when you are connecting to the server directly with any connection client, let's say with RDP connection client, in that case there might be some bad script that you have in your laptop, and it can be pushed into the target, right? And this is going to put your target server at risk, right? So whenever you implement this security solution, it is going to isolate the sessions, it is not going to allow any bad script to be pushed into the target. Okay, the connections are going to be isolated. Okay, the last thing that we get here is just in time or temporary access. Okay, let's say if you have some user and that user have some temporary work on your servers. Okay, that's user have some deployment work on your server. Okay, and you do not want that user to have access to your servers permanently, right? You want that user to have a temporary access on your servers, on your architecture. In that case you can even provision temporary access, right? Inside this security solution you have an option where you can define a date, right? You can define a date, and after that the accesses for that user will be expired. Okay, after that, that user won't be able to access anything inside your architecture. Okay, so these are the things that you get with this security solution. Okay, so yeah, that's what we have here in this session. Okay, we need 5 to 10 more minutes. Okay, we are going to just give you a review, okay, an overview of our course content. Okay, just give me 1 minute. Okay, so this is what we have in this CyberArk course. Okay, we have certain modules for that. Okay, in the first module, we will be covering the introduction part where we'll be discussing the pain areas, right? The risks. Where do we have risks with the privileged accounts? Okay, and what can be the expected solution for all of those risks? Okay, how can we prevent all of these risks? How can we provide a secure environment for our privileged accounts? Okay, once we are done with this module 1, we'll be moving on to this module 2, where we'll be having an overview of CyberArk. Okay, we will have the overview with the detailed diagram of CyberArk. Okay, with all of the components of CyberArk, what are different components, what are their functionalities in the architecture, right? After that, we'll be moving on to this module 3, where we'll be talking about the different components. Okay, we have different components of CyberArk. Okay, we'll be talking about each of them in detail. We'll be having a separate dedicated session for each of these components that you see here. Okay, after that, we'll be moving to this module 4. Okay, where we'll be discussing about the CyberArk, okay, functioning. After we are done with each of these components, we'll have one overview again. Okay, and once we are done with the theory, once we are comfortable with the theory, we'll be moving on to this module 5, where we'll be talking about the infrastructure installation, right? We'll be installing each of these components one by one. Okay, we'll be talking about the ports that are required for the communication, the prerequisites that are required for all of those components. Okay, and after that, we'll be installing all of these components. Okay, we'll be also integrating active directory with CyberArk. Okay, we'll be also integrating this email notification engine with CyberArk. All of these things will be discussed here. After that, we'll be moving on to this module 6, okay, and module 7. On both of these modules, we'll be discussing about the policies, right? We have some master policies that are used to govern your privileged accounts. Okay, so what are those policies and what policies do we use? Okay, how do you create saves? Where do you define the policies? How do you create exceptions? Everything will be discussed here in this module 7. In module 8, we'll be discussing about the saves, right? How do you create saves? Okay, how do you provision user accesses on the saves? How do you control accesses on the saves? How do you add accounts to the saves? Okay, after that, we'll be moving to this module 9, where we'll be talking about the account integration, Windows account integration, Linux account integration. Okay, and once we are done with all of these things, we will be having some use cases with us. Okay, in this use cases part, we will be having some daily to daily operational tasks, right? Daily to daily operations that you will be doing as a CyberArk administrator when you join your organization. Okay, so we'll learn that how can we onboard the users, how can we grant accesses to them. Okay, we'll have some cases for that. Okay, and all of these things will be discussed there. Okay, next thing is this vault backup activity. This is integrated with this module 13, so we'll be talking about this in module 13 here. In module 12, we'll be talking about troubleshooting, where we will be having some examples for some errors, right? Some errors that you get in your organization and how do you solve that. Okay, we'll be talking that here. In this last module, module 13, we'll be discussing about disaster recovery vault. Disaster recovery is basically the backup of your primary vault. Okay, it replicates the information, it stays in passive mode, and it gets activated whenever your primary system is not working. So, how do you set up your DR? How do you work with it? Is something that will be discussed here. Okay. Okay, so basically in 24 hours, we'll be covering administration work, all the operation task, all of your implementation, use cases, troubleshooting, everything will be covered here. Okay, okay, and for this, you will be having the access to virtual labs, right? I'll be granting the access to 5 virtual machines on which you'll have your softwares copied, right? You'll be doing the installation on those servers, and you'll be having the access to them for the next 30 days from the day it is granted to you.